Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye.
Welcome to the Dukes of Gaming podcast. My name is Thomas, the Duke of Procrastination. Thank you for choosing to hang out with us for the next hour and some change as we talk about what's happening in the world of video games. You can find us on your favorite podcast service. You can find us on YouTube, and you can find us on our socials, which are linked below in the description. Before we get started, I take great pleasure in introducing my fellow Dukes. First, we have the Duke of Education, Alfredo. How you doing this week?
Hello, I'm doing great. Students are thriving. Thank you for asking.
Good to hear. Next, we have the Duke of Nostalgia, Taylor. What's going on?
Not much. I'm doing great.
Excellent. After that, we have the Duke of Rocket League. What's going on, Cole?
What's up? I am still on my path to champion. I'm just plugging away, one win at a time, 2 losses, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. It's the story of my life in Rocket League. 6 years now, going strong.
You'll get it.
Good to see y'all.
And last but certainly not least, we have the Duke of Design. What's going on, Ben?
Not much. Got a little bit of a sunburn today, so just nursing that, but hopefully it doesn't slow us down at all.
We're praying for you. All right, and let's get some housekeeping out the way first and foremost. Ben's Book Club, happening late June. We will be discussing Days Gone, the PlayStation exclusive from Ben Studios. Stay tuned for that. On my YouTube channel, Thomas Rants, I'll be releasing a ranking of my favorite Nintendo Switch games. That will be out this Tuesday. I will also be releasing a versus battle between Spider-Man and Batman Arkham City. That comes next Tuesday. Also, whether you love or hate us, drop a review on Apple Podcasts or YouTube. It helps the channel grow, and we appreciate any feedback we receive. So, this week...
Maybe don't do it if you hate us, but you know.
Constructive criticism.
Yes.
If you hate us, stay silent. If you love us, put 3 comments.
We'll always welcome 5-star reviews.
Yeah, exactly.
Always. So this week, is Netflix trying to find a way into the video game industry? Were my fellow Dukes as impressed with Far Cry 6 as I was? And does Sony still care about Generations? We'll get to all this news in good time, but first, what you been playing this week? Who wants to start?
I'll go. I've been playing Fallout. Not Fallout 3, not Fallout New Vegas, not Fallout 76. Fallout Classic, the computer role-playing game. I enjoyed my time with Planescape Torment so much that I decided to pick up another CRPG right after I finished that one. This time I'm playing on PC on Steam because there's no mobile port of the original Fallout games. I have quite a few conflicting thoughts on this one, to be honest. It's archaic, which I expected in the gameplay, and what I didn't expect was I'm such a fan of the Fallout lore and the stories in the games, and I love the writing in the newer games, and for the most part. But the writing itself in the first Fallout game is pretty rough. It's pretty weird, and a lot of times just not good. And the conversation design is really bizarre too. Like I try to have a conversation with the character and I want to get a quest from them and it's clear that they need something, but I have to go down a specific branch of dialogue in order to do so. But I love to explore in branching dialogue. I like to talk about everything, or as much as I can. So a lot of times it'll be clear that if I ask this question, then they'll assign a quest or something like that. But I want to ask a different question first because I don't want to just get sent on the quest. So I ask the different question and I get to the end of that line of inquiry, and then it just boots me out of the conversation. So then I have to re-up the conversation with the character, but then it sends me to the beginning of the conversation. So I have to get back to where I was so to ask the second question that I wanted to ask. It's archaic in that way, which is really a bummer because I was hoping, especially after Planescape, which had a little bit of that weirdness, but the writing in that game was so good and such a pleasure to read and all that kind of stuff. Fallout is not the same. the world is great still. There's lots of interesting things. It's really cool to see where these games came from, but it's been just as rough as interesting at this point.
Cool. Quick question: did they? I know this game probably came out in the 90s.
Yeah,
did Fallout come out in the 90s. Yeah, were they? Were they still I guess as advanced storytelling wise, where they did the whole your choices matter, or were they not up to that standard yet? With that first,
from what I've heard, they're typically more. They take your choices into account more than the newer games because they can just handle that a bit better because it's not as expensive to do so. So that's something I'm looking forward to. But nice. I will report back on that once I finish the game.
Let me ask you this: since you do narrative design, is it harder to impress you? You think? Although this is a really old game, so I mean. But still, like I like hearing you talk about it and critique it because I'm thinking, I bet you're just tough to impress when it comes to that.
I don't think I am. I mean, like for one thing, it's a over 20-year-old game, so it's like I'm not trying to be too hard on it. There was like a lot of exploration that happened, and it was ahead of its time in so many ways. But I don't generally think I'm harder to impress than most people. I think I'm probably easier to impress than most people because I understand the hard work that goes into this kind of shit. So
that's
I don't take awesome. I don't take dialogue trees for granted. And if it's doing something really interesting, I'm probably going to pay attention to it. Whereas it might not be apparent to just casual players.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess in this case, I'm thinking about how much better it could be, or how much better it is in the subsequent entries in the game or in the series, and that was bumming me out a little bit. And how much better it was in Planescape Torment too, which I just
is that your plan to literally go through all of these old games like Fallout, then Fallout 2, like to go through all of it in order, maybe?
I'm not going through all the CRPGs, the classic CRPGs, in order right now. Planescape came after these Fallout games, but. I don't know. I think I'll probably play as many as I can handle in a single dose. I kind of did the same thing with the Souls games earlier this year, where I was like playing all these Souls games, and then I just after I beat Dark Souls, I was like, okay, I'm putting this down for a little while. So I think that'll probably happen after I beat Fallout 2.
Nice.
Well, I've always wanted to go back to those, or not go back, but at least kind of play those for the first time since I love Fallout so much. So I really want to hear your thoughts on Fallout 2.
Yeah, definitely. It's not. I will say, like, it was not that hard to get into it. It was not that complicated or anything like that. I looked up a YouTube video ahead of time just to get some basics on how to play, and that was enough. Really, all you need to know is like click F1 if you're stuck, because that has like all of the hotkeys for all of your abilities. So that'll set you straight most of the time.
Well, excellent. I can go next. So, spoiler, my background is the game I played this week. I played this little game called Inside. So right now, and I'm not gonna, I can't steal this. I think Cole said it. I'm inside right now. I played this game maybe when it first came out around, I think 2016. I played about an hour of it, and it just didn't capture me. And, there's so much to play. So if something doesn't capture you immediately, you're going to probably skip it and just, oh, it's a great experience, but not for me. That was me with this game for a while. I got it on Switch for like $5. So I was like, you know what, let me just play through it. Let me see, what all the fuss is about. And man, this game is as good as it's been critically acclaimed for me. I love how subtle it is, because this studio Playdead, they made Limbo. Limbo is one of those games where it's, very subtle, very, a lot of blacks, a lot of browns in the art style. So this game to me is the perfect follow-up to that game. From a gameplay perspective, the puzzles, while simple, they do, you do have to, kind of think about them. They're simple, but they're not like super easy. And the story that the game is telling is very subtle as well. But at the same time, like if you like, I've looked up YouTube videos just of the lore of this game, and it's like a lot's actually going on that you wouldn't really, if you're just playing through the game, you're not going to see that. Mm-hmm. I think that this game is, for me, probably the best game I played this year, which is crazy because this game came out like 4 years ago. But I've had a great time just playing it throughout the week. You know, I wish I had more to say about it, but I don't want to. I don't want to get into spoilers about it. I don't want to get into anything like that. I would say if you love, you know, a good indie game that's not going to take too much of your time, but something that's going to be, you know, get thoughts going through your head, a thought-provoking type game, you might want to check this one out. It's really cheap on Switch. I'm pretty sure it's cheap on everything else as well, so highly recommended this game.
Nice. I have a quick question about that. What do you think grabbed you this time, whereas when you first played it back in 2016, it didn't? Because I have played the game, and I played it when it first came out, and all the things you're saying, yeah. Sam?
It's simple. Switch.
Yeah.
That's it. Because I got it on PS4, and I don't know, it's just a different experience playing on your TV. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't know, when I play games like that, it has to be a really, really special game for me to play an indie game at least on my, you know, my TV. It's just a weird feeling because I'm like, I could be playing something more substantial. So when I was playing it the first time, it kind of felt, oh, this is kind of like a smaller experience. And I think Uncharted 4 came out around the same time, so I was like, I'm going to play this. You know, I was addicted to that game. So it was just a bad time for that game to come out for me. Now we're kind of in a lull of video games. Nothing really is coming out right now. Switch is something I can just play in bed while, you know, I'm watching NBA playoffs. So this is something I can just play like in bed. It's the perfect game for me for that. Mm-hmm. So I'll probably be playing it again after I roll credits earlier today.
I'm excited to hear your thoughts once you actually do roll credits, because I don't think you're going to see the ending coming.
Oh, no, I roll credits.
Oh, you have?
I'm going to play. I roll credits today.
Oh, I'm nice. Okay, we'll talk.
We will. I'm going to play it again because I feel like I missed a lot. Mm. So this game, it's such a shock to find a game that, you know, right now my game of the year, and it came out 5 years ago, you know? So I'm looking forward to whatever they release next. I think it's a third-person game they're making next. I hope we get announced at E3 this year because it's been 5 years.
That'd be exciting.
Definitely. I'm looking forward. I like Limbo, but this game is just, to me, on a whole nother level. I want more games like this.
Have you guys played this game?
Yes. Yeah. I can't remember what happened at the end, though. I remember something ridiculous happened. Like, I guess, I don't know if we want to talk about it, but I can't remember.
I found this game to be a little bit overrated. It sounds like annoying to say that just because the reason I found it to be overrated is because people like really sung the praises of this one. Like, this is the best game ever made, and it's, you know, amazing. It's really awesome. It's beautiful. It's got a wonderful tone. The story is weird and obscured in interesting ways, but I found the core gameplay, the puzzles, to be really lackluster just because there seems to me in some ways there's like no way to solve these puzzles without failing first, which is and failure is not really at
rewarded.
Least the way. Yeah, it's not really like baked into the cake the way you would expect it to be for a game that requires failure to solve puzzles. It just has a quick respawn mechanic.
I think it was riding the highs of Limbo for sure, and it was good enough. Yeah. Like, I really enjoyed my time with the game. It wasn't an amazing game, but it was a good game. I enjoyed it.
I'll be honest. I'll agree with what Ben said, but also double down on what Thomas said, because I bought this game twice. I bought this game on PC, on Steam. I didn't play it. Definitely failing made me feel like, why waste my time? On the Switch, on the other hand, I got no problem with that. I got no problem sitting down and taking extra time. There's a different feeling between just sitting in my chair that's beginning to look like me and walking around with my game. So I recommend it on the Switch. It's definitely not the best game ever. But it's
not the best game ever by any means.
Don't buy it on Steam.
as a portable experience,
Yeah.
this I love it. And I was with you, Ben, originally when I played it on PS4. I was just like, I don't see why this is getting Game of the Year hype. I don't because I felt obligated to play it in a way. You know, obviously you can choose what games you play, but people are saying this was like the best thing since sliced bread. And I just wasn't seeing it at the time. But as a Switch game, playing it while I'm watching my Lakers get destroyed, you know,
sometimes
it was the only solace I could have. So.
Dude, sometimes games just have to hit you right. It's kind of like TV shows. I tried for like two or three different times to get into Game of Thrones, and it would just never hit me right. And finally, one time it hit right, and I liked it, you know. And same thing with games. I'll play a game and I'll come back to it 2 or 3 years later or months later, and then it just hits right. And the Switch helps with that, with these the smaller experiences, because you want to be playing your big bombastic AAA games on your PS5, PS4, or whatever.
And you can pause it at any time.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes the indies do hit on my base consoles. Like they do sometimes. Not for Inside though. Like not for Inside. I felt like, why am I playing this right now when I could play Uncharted 4 multiplayer?
I do think this is a special game, and I agree, Thomas, that I would love to see more games like this. But I think it's been, the praises of it have been sung to a little bit of a ludicrous degree.
Best game ever made. I don't know about that. But as an experience, as an indie, because there's always that one indie game every year I feel that captures like the zeitgeist. You know, last year was Hades. The year before was Celeste. I think for 2016, this was that game. And I do think those games sometimes get a little overhyped. For me, this one hits better in 2021 than it did in 2016, just for me.
Yeah, because you're distanced from that hype, I think. So it's just kind of like, oh, it's Inside. Then pick it up and play it. You experienced it the best way possible, because I was like Ben and Taylor. It was overhyped. And I was just expecting like just absolute greatness. And it was just kind of like, yeah, okay, it's good. It's a great game, but...
It's a subtle game. The best way I can describe this game is subtle.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
We could talk about Inside all day. Who wants to go next?
I'll go next. This really isn't what I've played this week, but it's what I'm going to play next week, but received this week. I finally received my little version of the Game Boy Operator, GB Operator for copyright reasons. The GB Operator by Epilogue. Epilogue made this little cartridge that you can attach your Game Boy games to your computer through USB. And I'm very excited to get into it. I've heard a couple good little reviews from Germany. I don't know, I said that weird. Germany, the country Germany. I've heard a couple good reviews from Germany, because that's where the game was made, I believe. I think the operator was made. But basically, this little device promises you can back up save files on here. You can transport your Game Boy camera pictures to your computer through this. You can develop homebrew and play it on Game Boy cartridges, which is what I'm very excited about. And I just found out that they've added counterfeit cartridge detection. And as a collector, that's kind of nice. I definitely own a couple counterfeit games I already know about, so I will be testing that feature. I definitely know Pokemon Flora Sky isn't a real game, but so that's probably counterfeit. But I'm gonna be playing around with Game Boy games on my computer a lot the next coming weeks, and I think it'll be fun. So tune in, not next week, but tune in next week. Tune in next week, but tune in next week to hear what I think of the Game Boy Operator.
Cool.
Sounds good. I can't wait.
Yeah,
I can't wait. I love a good counterfeit Pokemon game.
Don't we all?
I'm actually looking forward to playing my Game Boy WarioWare games, but
I never played those. I never played
God.
WarioWare. I've heard such great things about them that I want to try it.
Spoilers. That's gonna be my reminisce 2 weeks from now.
Ooh.
Guarantee you, my reminisce is WarioWare.
Fans, get ready.
Get pumped.
Get pumped. All right. Who else wants to go?
I can go. So, as you all know, I'm the Duke of Education because I take care of my students in Fire Emblem. I decided it might be best if I took a bit of a sabbatical. Just get some distance since I did, fully complete one whole campaign, moved on to the next. Need a bit of a break. However,
using that PTO.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta use it. But I thought it would be nice if I used this time to perhaps still spread my wings and offer my assistance to some underprivileged kids in Japan specifically. So I've been playing a little game called World's End Club. It is a new game that came out by a new company called 2Q Games, like Tokyo, but 2TOO. And this was actually a company that was founded by ex-developers Spike Chunsoft. If you guys know the Danganronpa series, which I love, as well as a couple of Dukes on here, it's the love child of the Danganronpa series plus the Zero Escape series. So what they did was the creators from both of those games, the writers and creators of the games, decided to leave those companies and start a new company. And this was their first game for that. Or not first game, but first game with the same type of premise. With the premise being there is a bunch of school-aged children, and they are playing a killing game of sorts. And you are promised a bunch of thrills, twists, and I was hoping for some of the best writing and twists, cliffhangers, all of that ever in my life, because Danganronpa, quite in my opinion, is the pinnacle of twists and game writing as far as just surprising you, jaw-dropping things. Zero Escape also does a very good job with that. The second one is my favorite, so if you haven't played any of those games, make sure you play those, folks. So I was really excited to start playing this game on Switch, and I mentioned it briefly last week, but what they did was that this game did come out last September on iOS, but it had a cliffhanger ending where the game was essentially unfinished, and you had to wait until last week in order to get the full story. So so basically it's a killing game. You get these children and you're trying to figure out how to keep them alive or solve the big mystery that is happening. What is different about this game is that it kind of opens up into a cross-country trip across Japan, which is why I need to be there, obviously, as the teacher for this school field trip. And so I was expecting twists, turns, best writing, jaw-dropping things. So far, I've gotten none of that. I have, as of yesterday, rolled credits. However, that was a dog. However, I am only 3-ish hours in. I have not played a lot of this game. However, much like the Zero Escape series, it involves you going back into making decisions along the way, and then going back with hindsight knowledge of those decisions and making a different decision and seeing how other decisions play out so that you can eventually get to the true ending. So far, honestly, I'm pretty disappointed, but the story is intriguing enough to keep me going with it, and I'm hoping that they can kind of keep me on my toes, and I love the creators of these games, so I'm going to support them no matter what, just to see what they can make in the future. Give them a little bit of wiggle room since this is kind of their first big-ish outing, but I'm excited to see what twists are next, but stay tuned next week or next week to hear if I am, excited as to like a future franchise for this, or if I want to run back to my Fire Emblem class. So yeah.
Alfredo, how did you find the moment-to-moment gameplay? Because I looked up some gameplay of it, and it looked really not good and felt frustrating.
The gameplay of this is, sadly, its weakest point. So in Danganronpa and Zero Escape, the gameplay isn't its forefront, the story is, and that's what I was always expecting for this. This gameplay is platforming with very, very minimal action, extremely minimal action. So what the game does is that each of your students essentially have a superpower, which is assigned to one specific button, and these powers can be ranged from they can make a specific item like bombs, or they can throw like pebbles and stuff. This game does have boss battles and stuff where you use that. However, I feel like they missed a huge opportunity here with the powers. You're always locked into playing one specific student for a specific section of the game. You cannot swap in between students at all. Sometimes you're able to have other students with you and tell them, hey, use your power here. But they missed a huge opportunity, honestly, in not allowing you to really use all of these powers. And also, the puzzles in this game are extremely, extremely simple and very much they're not plentiful. In Zero Escape probably did it best, where Zero Escape had very good puzzles where you really had to think and like figure out these solutions and really make hard decisions, kind of. This game has probably only one puzzle that I was like, how do you do this? And then after that, I got it. There have been no puzzles after that at all that really make you like have to think and stop and think for a while. And the platforming is like extremely easy. Like this game is so easy. It's basically a walking simulator.
So is it going to disappoint me as a diehard Danganronpa and Zero Escape fan, or?
I would hold your breath until I can tell you, until I reach the true ending and conclusion. Okay. Like I said, the story is good enough that I'm like, okay, I kind of want to see what exactly is going on. But I can tell you right now, this is no Danganronpa, and it's not any Zero Escape. It does not reach the heights of either of those so far at all.
Bummer.
And I don't think it will.
That was my first impressions too. I'm so glad there was a demo.
Mm-hmm.
So glad. So I downloaded the demo because we had just talked about it on the podcast. I was like, oh my God, they're making a brand new series, same creators. I love the vibe of this. As soon as I touched that gameplay, I was like, this is not for me. That's so unfortunate. It's unfortunate. I might watch a YouTube video of it one day, but I just could not.
It's a huge tone shift as well, because Zero Escape and Danganronpa are all about like leaning into that kind of, I would argue, an M rated, where it's like all about like you feeling. Danganronpa is literally about despair, is what they say all the time, and making you feel like, no, my favorite character died, no. And this game is the opposite. This game is literally about friendship and how friendship can overcome any obstacle. So, you know, very, very different ideas there.
That said, and Alfredo, I really like your description of the game as a game where you collect children and keep them from dying. Great to see. I'm all in.
Well, also, if you get hit by there's no health bar. If you get hit at all with anything, it's immediate game over, which is extremely frustrating as well. Even in boss fights where you have to do a specific thing very over and over to get the boss's health down, if you get hit once, like you start all over. So it's kind of annoying as well. But well, I'm in it for the story, so I'm hoping the story can at least pleasantly surprise me with its conclusion, but we will see.
All right. Well, I hope to hear more about the story, because the story seemed like the most interesting aspect of it.
For sure, yeah. That's what I'm hoping.
Me too. So, let's get into our topics for the week. We have a pretty decent week as far as topics go. Our first topic has to do with Netflix. Now, I don't know if everybody here has Netflix or how much experience everybody has with Netflix. I love Netflix. I use it pretty much every day for various reasons, you know, as far as there's so many different shows on there. But what they want to do now, apparently they want to get into gaming. According to a Polygon article, they're looking to expand their profile into an Apple Arcade-like service. Me personally, I think that this is a bad idea, but I'm curious if what your all thoughts is, because I just don't see why they would do this.
I I think it's a good idea. I do think it's a good idea. I found this story, oddly enough, through an NPR report. I was listening to NPR on a drive, and they brought it up, and they started talking about terrible ideas. The NPR people are so out of touch. Let's be honest. These two old codgers were like, "Oh yes, well I watched Bandersnatch on Netflix, and that's video gaming." And I liked Bandersnatch. I thought it was a good amount of fun for like 1 hour. And they brought up the Kimmy Schmidt thing. Apparently there was a Kimmy Schmidt thing. But I harken back to the days when I was popping my Netflix disc into my Wii to play Netflix videos, and they're the beginning of the cloud service movies. That's when cloud service movies started, was with Netflix. So they've got a strong infrastructure in place for cloud service. And I don't, as much as I would mock, what was the Google one?
Stadia.
Oh my God, I already forgot. As much as I mock Stadia, and I think some cloud gaming is pretty flawed, I think Netflix could hit a home run with this. I think it's a great move for them, and it's kind of cool that Netflix is going like, gaming. That's where we need to go. A lot of people are gaming. Wouldn't it be cool if they could just play a game whenever they wanted? I don't think they're gonna do their own. I don't think they're gonna do much of their own personal content. I suppose. I don't think they're gonna sit down and make the Bandersnatch Kimmy Schmidt game. Black Mirror meets Kimmy Schmidt. I don't think they're going to do nonsense like that, but I think as NPR did point out, though, NPR had a good point that I didn't think of. They have a lot of IPs. Netflix has a lot of IPs that they've been just accruing over the years, doing nothing with, but have still maintained presence in the culture of at least America. And I think there's a great well of ideas for Netflix to jump into to make games and or just stream games.
I think it could go either way. I'm kind of where Thomas is on this, in that I don't think it's a great idea, because I actually do think, at least starting out, they would try to go the way as, let's do kind of what we did with Bandersnatch, but expand it. Versus, because if they didn't do that, what exactly would they be doing? Would they be doing the same thing that Stadia is trying to do, where they say, hey, buy this controller and then you can, get these third party?
Yeah.
And if they do, then, Stadia never really took off. So I don't know if I would trust Netflix to be able to pull it off as well.
But Netflix has that infrastructure, and they've been there. They're in everyone's houses already.
That's true. I just don't know if I would trust them to be able to pull it off as well. It's because it's coming off the heels of Google and them trying to do the same exact thing and just switching in company. Although they do have, they're in everybody's homes already. However, this will be an additional subscription, kind of like Apple Arcade. So you're going to have to, maybe they'll have some sort of trial for you to try it on and see how it works. And maybe people end up liking it. But they're still going to have to get people to sign up for this extra subscription. And if it isn't great at launch, just like Google Stadia was not great at launch, if they don't stick the landing when it first happens, then people are just going to back out, just like they did with Stadia. And then you have to deal with the whole end game of, will Netflix continue supporting this? Kind of like Google has started pulling out, saying we're all in on games, and then, now we're just doing third party because we're not too sure about this anymore. It's just a lot of unknowns, and since this has failed in the past, it'll be interesting to see what Netflix will try to do to differentiate themselves from the failure that was Stadia.
I think it's a great idea, because if you're Netflix, think about how big they already are. They're so huge. They really how can you even grow from where you're at, where Netflix is right now? And the idea is they're all sitting around the executive meeting and they're like, where can we go? And someone says gaming. And gaming is worth more than all the entertainment industries put together. So it's a great idea. Whether they can do it or not is the question. But but Netflix is so accessible. Every single person I know has Netflix, has it on their TV. You know, if they were to push it right and were to say, hey, add gaming for $5 a month or whatever, and then when you log onto your Netflix, you see gaming or TV media, whatever, or TV movies, whatever, that could be huge. And I could see them doing, if they did a real push. See, I think Google could have done it because I think Google has the infrastructure. I was really bullish on Stadia at the beginning, but then I should have known better with how Google drops all their projects. But if they were to really push it, I think they could do something with it. They could imagine if they launched it, and anytime you log on, someone logs on Netflix, whether it's my parents or my grandparents, whatever, it says they put together this nice trailer. It says, we have gaming now. Would you like to add gaming for an extra $5 a month? Or, hey, I don't know, it's free for the first 3 months. And
but here's the thing, though, because do you think that those 9 gamers, like everyone's parents, will be will not only pay that subscription, but then go ahead and buy a game for $30 in order to, play a game?
No. See, so I think it would have to be, they'd have to work out something to where it's like $10 all you can eat,
That's what the article says. The article mentions a reduced cost version of Apple Arcade where you pay $5.99 or $4.99 a month, and what the article says, which I think is really important to focus on here, is you pay $4.99 a month for an ad-free model consisting of exclusive higher-end games, exclusive games. The best thing Netflix could do, in my opinion, is develop games to the platform and to their user base. Don't make things like The Last of Us that require complex button inputs that people like my parents would know where to start with. Make things that work on a remote. Make things that work with your smartphone. What if we're thinking about this wrong? I mean, nothing in the article says that this is going to be a game streaming service per se. What if it's just on your phone and you get to make Telltale style choices in actual games, not a Bandersnatch full motion video predetermined thing, but something that's running in real time in a game engine? That could be compelling.
It could be. That's brilliant because I didn't even think about it like that. That could be like a Wii-like kind of integration, gets everybody into gaming again. And imagine too if they add a social element to it, where you link up to all your friends and, hey, my grandma got this score on this, or
grandma
did this
gaming.
with that.
Get grandma gaming.
But they would have to be the games would definitely. That's a great idea, and I would probably even try that. But as long as they could make the games have a wide variety in types, because if they're all that same kind, then it would get old real quick. But we'll see if they're able to make at least 50 at launch, something like that, maybe 30 of different types of games where they can hold people's attention and say, there is value to this. Because if it's exclusive, like you said, it would have to be, they would have to have completely original ideas and make them not these AAA, more like smaller indie title games, like you're saying, Benny.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I don't know that they need to have a robust launch suite or anything like that. The best thing that they could possibly do is say, for the first year, we're not going to charge extra for this. You're just going to have it. We're going to roll out some content. You're going to get used to it. You're going to like it. You're going to play it. If it's for you, then next year you're going to pay us for it. I think that would be an awesome way to just blow open the door. And then Netflix are the masters of the weekend consumption. Like all you can talk about when you get to the office on Monday is what just dropped on Friday on Netflix.
That's true. That's very true.
They're the masters of that sort of thing. So I think if they're trying to deliver content like that and they're tailoring it to the system, they're not porting existing stuff that works on Xbox and PS4 that wouldn't work well for Netflix. And they are the only providers of these games, right? These are exclusive games developed by them for their platform. That's a really compelling argument to me. And if I don't have to pay that much extra on top of my existing Netflix subscription, which is already burning a hole in my wallet every month, then okay, maybe that's all the only puzzle piece that needs to fit in there. And again, like maybe it's game streaming, maybe it's not. Maybe it's game streaming for games that would be better suited to streaming that don't require twitchy combat and things like that. Anyway, there's a wide variety of things they could be doing here.
Mm-hmm. And if they can tap into that like trending, like fear of missing out, like, hey, we dropped like, I don't know, whatever, the Tiger King show or whatever is out, but it's a game, and they can get people like hooked on that for like a year. So they drop their version, whatever their Stranger Things would be for the fall. It's like some kind of game. Everybody hops in and plays it. Everyone's talking about it. Because like live TV, no one even tweets or talks about live TV anymore, unless it's the Super Bowl. Really, it's all about what dropped. Like when something drops on Netflix or something becomes like the zeitgeist. If they can tap into that in gaming, that could be something special and something completely different. Like they could carve their own niche.
That's funny you mentioned that, because they actually do have a couple of Stranger Thing games for like mobile and Steam, and I could totally see something like that in it, where it's like more indie, like basic enough that it's not a full blown game, but it's still a pretty fun game.
Mm-hmm.
My only worry is really how much are they investing in this? Because if we think about all the other companies that have gotten into this cloud streaming service industry, it's been Amazon, it's been Google, it's been Microsoft. And while Netflix is big, they're not anywhere near those companies in terms of how much risk they can like Google Stadia fails, that's not bringing down Google. You know what I'm saying? And Google Stadia, I don't know how much money was invested, but I assume a lot. Amazon, probably the same thing. Mm-hmm. Microsoft, Game Pass is very successful, but it's still not profitable. So I'm assuming this Netflix service is going to be smaller scale games. I would assume indie level budgets. And just based on the demographics of who they're targeting these to, I don't know if targeting it to the demographic that they're going to try to target it to, at least as far as the report I'm seeing, I don't know how successful that can be and how much of a risk it is. And I'm saying, and if it's not a risk, if they're not investing a lot of money into it, how good are these games going to be?
Mm-hmm. So I don't know how,
because we think of all the money they invest in, let's say, a Stranger Things, they invest a lot of money in that. And so, and it pays off. It gives them more subscriptions. I don't know how much money, it's going to take to get people to be invested in these games that they release. That's why I'm not as strong on it. I think it could be successful, but, it's going to take a lot of, it's going to take a lot of money to do that. So and I don't think
Netflix's market cap is almost double of Sony's.
That's incredible.
So they have tons of money. Apparently,
I just throw money at shows every 5 seconds and cancel them after one season. So makes sense.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I think they could do it. It's just a matter of how passionate they are about it, or if they really. Maybe that's the thing with Google. Is they're just. I don't know. They're just so big. They're like, yeah, we'll just try it, whatever. If Netflix decides to do something, maybe they will go full steam ahead in it. I don't know. It's very interesting.
If they definitely do go this route, like Ben said, it'll have to be something where some kind of deal is free here just to get them hooked. But I also do think about if this is successful, we're probably going to see the whole Netflixication all over again. Everyone and their mom's streaming service will start trying to get into that game because they're going to see Netflix's numbers, and then HBO Max is going to start having some DC games. I mean, which is great for us because we're getting all these new services.
As long as the games are good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of if they can make them good. But they do have to definitely appeal to, non-gamers, which is going to be their uphill battle.
We'll definitely see. It's definitely something that we're going to keep our eyes on. All right. So our next topic is a little game that got a preview, not event, but a preview showcase of just kind of initial gameplay, story trailer. We got some news about Far Cry 6. Now, this game has been long delayed. It was supposed to be a launch game for the next-gen consoles. Didn't turn out that way. It's coming to us later this year. For me, I am not the biggest Far Cry fan. This one initially, it just hooked me. Like, as soon as I saw the vibe of what we're going for, this is basically just like, and I know they're trying to shy away from the fact that it's not supposed to be Cuban. It's not supposed to be, one of these like dictatorial type, environments. It's inspired by those. And while Far Cry has had, stuff like that in the past, I think this one leans really heavily into it. And I love it. I think that the vibe of this, I think the graphics look really good. Far Cry always has good gameplay, so I expect it to still deliver there. I am really excited for this game. Is anybody else excited?
Yeah, I'm super excited about it as well. Kind of like you, Thomas. I haven't played a ton of Far Cry. I did play Far Cry 3, and then I bought Far Cry 4 because I like Far Cry 3 so much, and that one didn't really dig into me, and ever since then, I kind of stayed away from it. However, because I didn't finish Far Cry 4. However, we got a lot of details with this one. They gave us, what character we're playing as. They gave us showed off all the crazy weapons and all the exotic animals like alligators and shirts that you can have as pets and stuff like that. And for me, it seems to like it's leaning more into that wacky kind of goofy side while also trying to blend in kind of Breaking Bad, which is an interesting move because I'm really excited actually for the zany, wacky side. It really seems like it's leaning in a Saints Row kind of direction where they're just giving you all these crazy things and just saying, yeah, this is in the game. Yeah, rocket launchers and faux jetpacks are in the game now, and you're gonna just have this environment as your playground. And I love Saints Row, so this immediately grabbed my attention. So I think I'm gonna actually jump into this one, whereas previously it was more political and you're in the jungles, which doesn't quite grab my attention. So I'm pretty excited.
There was always some of that in the Far Cry games, but I think they're in danger of jumping the shark on this one. I'm looking at some of this and I'm like, I don't see much difference between this and Just Cause. And Just Cause is like, fair. I love Just Cause, but it's not Far Cry. It looks like they're importing a lot of the stuff from New Dawn, like these weapons that are like totally post-apocalyptic cobbled together stuff, which is interesting. I like the setting. What I really like is the fact that there's like a voiced protagonist again. I don't think they've done since 3. I might be wrong about that. Maybe Primal did, but everything was subtitled because it was in a different language. That's the thing that really stuck out to me that I like. But aside from that, I think they're in danger of going a little too cute by half on this one.
Yeah, they might hurt their player base, but they might bring in new people like me who are like goofy stuff like this.
I'm inclined to agree because my favorite thing about Far Cry has to be the religious overtones of all the games and how cultish humans tend to act when given the opportunity to just fall in line with some almighty leader. And I think political cultism is a big topic nowadays with so many big powerful people in the world gathering cults of personality. So I think using that sort of Cuba, Venezuela-esque, dictator is a great idea. But I worry that yes, the cutiness, the funniness, the Saints Row-iness of it is a little overwhelming. Far Cry 5 might actually be it's one of my favorite games ever. I love Far Cry 5. I think it's nearly perfect, but that's because of the balance between the story and what I can do as a player that makes me feel like it's a video game. I can be free, but also the story of this madman cult leader who's abusing people around him.
Far Cry 5 is the America one, right?
It's the one in like Montana or some state like that.
It's the one with the David Koresh type vibe.
Yeah. David Koresh. He's got a nice big cult that he's drugged and is telling him to do many things. I like that a lot. Far Cry 4, I agree. Alfredo was a little, it was kind of lame, but
they tried. They tried with the crazy villain protagonist that they tried to recreate.
I like 4 a lot.
You do?
I like 4 a lot too.
I think there's a chance though that because 4 was going for that, where it was a political leader. I think a more political person than just like a random person, and I have hope that the mix of like the cool, almost like, you know, you can deck out your stuff, GTA add-ons to this game will bring in some more, how do I put it politely, neats, who wouldn't play a more thoughtful game, but still might come away from playing Far Cry 6 with like oh yeah, dictators. That's bad. That's no good. And that's my hope. That's my hope.
Well, I think we're all looking forward to that coming out later this year. One game that we thought we were going to look forward to this year is actually been delayed. So, this according to the SIE blog, God of War, I think it's called Ragnarok. I don't
confirmed.
It's not confirmed.
Yet.
It said Ragnarok is coming in the initial, thing. We don't know what it's called. God of War 2. We had 2 big news for it. It's not coming out in 2021. That's gone. It's
Gasp!
2022. I know.
I'm so shocked.
We're all shocked here. Whoa. But it's not coming out 2021. And it is confirmed for PlayStation 4 as well. So it's a cross-generation game. I guess I can go first on this. I am not as concerned as the average bear about this. For me, what I saw with like Miles Morales, I played that on PS4. I played that on PS5. I saw a market difference. Like, there was a big difference between those two. I think there's going to be a drastic difference between God of War 2 for PS4 and God of War 2 for PS5. I think it's going to be a huge difference. I don't think there's going to be a gameplay mechanic like in, let's say, Ratchet and Clank that's going to, you need a PS5 to make this gameplay mechanic work. If I can just get that axe back with the DualSense, I'm good. So, for me, I don't see it as the biggest deal, but I don't know if you all share that opinion.
I think it's disappointing. That's like, I don't think it's a big deal, but I think it's very disappointing after they came out and they were like, we believe in generations. And they were going to push that, and that made them different, the next box. And that was just exciting. They were going to take the envelope and they were going to push it and keep pushing it. And now the PS4 is just, and see, I feel like it's weighing us down. So I have the opposite view than you on that. Because back when the generations were like, when you jump from PlayStation 2 to 3, or like even before, like from the game to the PlayStation 2, from the 1 or the GameCube, like there was always a push in like tech, like physics, or like, do you guys remember when the like Grand Theft Auto 4 had the Euphoria engine, which was like this engine, and I remember they demoed it at an E3 one year with the Indiana Jones game. And it was like how the pedestrians would like grab onto things and hold them. Oh, Force Unleashed had it. That was the first game that had it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that was incredible. I mean, you haven't seen anything like that in a game since Force Unleashed or GTA 4. GTA 5 actually dialed that Euphoria engine back a lot. You can look up videos and see the difference between 4 and 5 of them dialing it back for whatever reason. But
extremely expensive. It's super expensive.
Yes, but see, that's like something that, to me, instead of the next generation, okay, we're going to jump from 30 to 60, which is substantial and it's a big difference. But 30 to 60, or like we're going from 1440 or 1080 to 4K. I mean, it's exciting and it's pretty and stuff, but like, I like the physics engines. Like, what can you do that requires more power? To me, that's the most exciting stuff. Not just a better resolution and 90 frames per second instead of 60, or even 60/30. Honestly, I don't really care as much about that, but I can see where that's an argument. You know what I mean? Like,
devil's advocate. Let me play devil's advocate for a second. So, what are some of the best PS4 games that came out in those initial 2 years of PS4?
PS4 games.
Initial?
There's not any.
Second Son, Bloodborne.
Second Son maybe pretty good.
Bloodborne is the only one that I'd say stands as far as if you rank PS4 games, that's up there. Besides that,
it could probably be a PS3 game. Right. I would argue.
Second Son
graphics big time.
Right.
Yeah.
But before, I think Uncharted 4 was probably the first game that you can say this is a PS4 exclusive that stands the test of time. And I think because if you think about the games that came out back then, they just weren't. There was a point in time where it was why do I have this PS4? And those games weren't selling like crazy. I think they kind of learned their lesson from that because the PS4 wasn't backwards compatible, so it wasn't an option for that. So you had to release these games. It's a PS4 exclusive game. I think now there's so many PS4s in the zeitgeist. It's their most successful console besides the PS2. I think it's gaining on the PS2, if I remember correctly. I don't know how far it is away, but it's one of their most successful consoles. If you just sell that to PS5 people, how many sales are you getting? You're getting probably 4 or 5 million units sold. So are you say 4 or 5 million compared to probably, a lot more than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's why I'm not as upset about it because these games have to be funded somehow. And I don't think that just releasing it on PS5, I'd love to see Demon Soul sales. I'd love to see them because they can't be that much.
Can we also talk about
big PS4 games?
Let's talk about the elephant in the room. I think is the I don't want to get demonetized. So the virus has limited the sales for the PS5.
Not just the virus, though. It's also the chip shortage.
The chip shortage and the virus has really
due
limited.
To the virus.
Yeah.
Right.
Has
the
limited.
Chip shortage is the big thing, and that's not going away anytime soon.
No. So they know that their market on the PS5 is limited. So,
but the PS5 is still outselling the PS4 as of where the current
trajectory
PS4 this much into its life cycle sold less than PS5 has. So I don't really buy that argument at all, and I also don't really buy the argument of copies sold for God of War because that is always the calculus for an exclusive game. You're inherently going to sell less because you're limiting your customer base, whether it's limited to just the PS5 or whether it's limited to only PS4 and PS5 and no one on PC or Switch or Xbox can play it. You're inherently limiting it to push the hardware. So the sales of the hardware recoup the costs of the lost revenue in potential sales of the game. That's why you can get massive budgets on these Sony games that only sell 5 million. 5 million to EA would be disappointing in the context of a lot of these things, but it's not to Sony because they're selling boxes while they do it.
Mm-hmm. And require memberships to PlayStation Plus.
Yeah, totally. And then once they're in the ecosystem, they're buying things that they get a 30% ripoff. So I don't really buy that. What's weird about this generation is that there's this expectation that everything is going to be playable across generations because it's easier to develop across generations than it has been previously. Developers have a better sense of how to scale things appropriately, and the engines are better at facilitating that, and the architecture is not totally changed across generations. So there's an expectation that if I have a PS4, I'm going to be able to play the sequel to this great PS4 game. However, I think Cole is exactly on the right track here. It's not a difference between how good the game is going to look on PS4 versus PS5. It's going to look amazing on PS5. I don't have to worry about that. We've already seen Horizon Forbidden West prove that. We will never know. We will never know what amazing tech Sony Santa Monica had to say no to because it would not be performant PS4 because it would push the game under 30 too often. And so we will never see the amazing physics they could have pushed on PS5 until X game, which will only be on PS5, or will probably be cross-gen PS5 to PS6, and we'll be having this exact same conversation then. But we will know what the cost actually was, and it I think the potential biggest lost interesting facet there is just like what they could have done with game design and the gameplay, not how good it looks and not how fast it loads, though that could potentially be part of the gameplay. We won't ever know, and I do think that's a bummer.
So an example would be like, let's say they developed, like we talked about last week, we talked about like a water aspect where like you have some kind of surfboard, boat, or whatever, mechanical. But imagine if they implemented this awesome like wave system where like you had these huge waves or something. You could travel through the islands and like, I don't know, there's so much stuff. Like that's the stuff that interests me is like, what new things can you do as far as physics and systems as opposed to prettier, shinier graphics? Because the graphics are always so. Even the PlayStation Pro is beautiful. I mean, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. Everything that you guys say, I agree with. As far as the way I feel about it, it's I couldn't when this news initially came out. I was a bit disappointed, but I couldn't say that I wasn't surprised because, like you all said, Sony has 100+ million PS4s, and they're not just going to say no to all of those sales. And the disappointment does stem from the fact that we're not going to get these new game-breaking game design concepts until they decide to go that route and kind of sunset the PS4. I'm thinking more about kind of like you were saying, Cole. What first comes to mind for me as far as like something new, especially with God of War that they could have done, is that these worlds won't be. I don't imagine these worlds will be as inhabited as they once would be. When I'm thinking about God of War 2 in comparison to God of War 1, God of War 1 was a very secluded kind of journey where it was you and your boy on this journey and you fighting demons. When I'm thinking about God of War 2, which is gonna have to push to God of War 3, is you fighting these titans, you fighting possibly these giant armies, and they're not really going to be able to do thousands upon thousands of enemies on screen like they could have these astronomical army battles in God of War 2. That will not be safe for God of War 3 probably. So it's disappointing in that, like you guys said, we won't get these sort of things. We're just going to basically get a prettier game, essentially, and that 60 FPS boost, which is great for now. But for gamers who, are waiting for the true next-gen, kind of features, we're going to have to wait until 2, maybe 3, even 4 years down the line where PlayStation can finally say, okay, we have X amount of PS5s, which are like pretty close to what we sold with PS4. So now we don't have to say no to those sales because we have everyone upgraded and we don't have to worry about money anymore because everyone has a PS5.
Now, this was always the plan, we assume, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't just say, oh, we got to put it on PS4 now because of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been the plan.
Just like 2022 was always the plan, I feel.
So I'm saying, like, you couldn't, because it's like, if it was developed for PS5, you can't just turn it into a PS4 game.
Well, it's based on the same infrastructure now, so I think it's a little bit easier for them to do that. Unlike the PS3, those were completely different infrastructures, PS3 to PS4.
No, but what I'm saying is, like, Ratchet and Clank, you couldn't just turn that into a PS4 game. You know what I'm saying? You can't just turn Ratchet and Clank into a PS4 game because of the pandemic.
Right.
It has to be designed that way. Mm-hmm. So this was always the plan.
Yeah, I think it was always the
plan. And it's just different now because last gen, there was no, like, you couldn't play your PS3 games on it. So they basically just said, not throw away your PS3 per se, but we're moving on. This time, that's not the case. And the landscape has just changed. Online games, I can play Call of Duty with my friend on PS4 or my PS5. I don't think you could do that last gen, right?
No.
There distinct message of we're moving on to the next phase of things. We're moving on to the next generation.
But they had that distinct message too. They gave that distinct message this time.
No doubt they lied. No doubt they lied.
Yeah, serious.
They lied.
To me, this has always been the plan. This is not some, the pandemic slowed us down. I think this is we didn't know how to message this correctly to make sure gamers don't get mad.
Mm-hmm. It was always the plan because of the money that they would be able to make.
Right. And I don't know if Sony Santa Monica was mad about it either, because they have a financial interest in this too.
I have to imagine that this was not a rug pull moment for Sony Santa Monica where PlayStation came in and they were like, you guys have to put this on PS4 for monetary reasons. I think Sony Santa Monica has plenty enough sway to be like, no, we can't do that. I mean, exactly. You want to add 2 years to the development timeline, because it's not a trivial thing to do. To go backwards like that. It's easier to add accoutrements and interesting things and better lighting and better reflections into a PS4 game to make it PS5 enhanced, unlock the frame rate, all that kind of stuff. It's not easy to scale back. It's really, really not easy to scale back. We did it on Saints and Sinners. We did it twice. We did it from PC to PS4 down to Quest. It's not easy. It took us 6 months on each go about. So what I have to imagine was, they started development on this thing probably right after the original God of War shipped. Mm-hmm. So in 2018,
it was a short turnaround.
There was no way they had wide enough dissemination of test hardware so that Santa Monica could be building this thing from day one to a PS5 spec. Mm-hmm. So they were probably prototyping in the original God of War engine using original God of War assets and beginning to make the second chapter in that mode, so that when they transitioned to PS5, they realized at that point, well, we're building this thing on PS4 anyway. It's probably gonna go just fine on PS4. So let's just keep maintaining the PS4 version. Or they just decided that it would. To be honest, like that's the only thing that really seems logical to me. That they were already building it on PS4, and this is exactly what was explicitly stated for Horizon.
That's what I think that there was a question maybe Sony asked them of, do you want, is the game that you have in mind to develop, can it take place on PS4, or do you need PS5 to tell your story?
So you guys think that
I don't know.
I think this was a Sony decision.
Yeah, I don't think this was a Santa Monica's decision at all, because in what world would any designer, any game designer choose to limit themselves like that?
Well, Sony's not developing the game, Santa Monica is. And they have a vision for what the game is.
Mm-hmm. I find it very hard to believe that Sony would say to Santa Monica, hey, we're going to put it in your hands to leave, get these 100 million sales from PS4. We don't care about them at all. We'll let you make the decision if it will, just go to PS5.
Well, maybe it was an option. Maybe it was, you can put it on PS4 and sell the copies, and you'll be able to get it out by 2022. Or if we develop it for PS5, it's not coming out till 2023, 2024. Well, you're not going to be able to make an exclusive PS5 game coming off of a game that came out in 2018.
But here's my thing. It's two very different things from saying go and get Insomniac and saying Ratchet and Clank, which is not going to sell like God of War will and God of War has. It's different from saying you guys can put this on PS5 because this is more of a niche game and it will help push the product, versus God of War, which was a massive critical success, which I don't see Sony saying, even giving them the option of leaving it off PS4. You know what I'm saying?
I imagine Insomniac had more time because the Ratchet and Clank team is different from the Spider-Man team. And the last Ratchet and Clank game came out in 2016. So for me, a 2016 to 2021 turnaround sounds pretty reasonable. A 2018 to 2021 and 2022 now, it seems like you probably need a little bit more time to make that game a PS5 exclusive with all the bells and whistles.
So I think it's a little bit of both of what y'all are saying, like what Ben was saying, as far as they started developing this game on PS4 PS4, and I think Sony just kind of took a totality of the circumstances and just made a game time decision, and told them, "Hey, we need this to be on PS4 too. You've already started developing it. You started developing it. Horizon and God of War both started on this. It's feasible for us to do this. Let's go ahead and just make that game." They probably decided that 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and just said, "We're going to keep it on PS4 and we're going to sell millions, hundreds of millions of copies."
This is a touchier subject than I thought it would be.
I gotta say, I think people are missing the forest from the trees here. The disappointing thing is not that God of War is on PS4.
Mhm.
God of War 2 was always going to be a next step iteration of what God of War 2018 was. Why shouldn't it be on PS4? Disappointing thing is that now where is the PS5 exclusive blockbuster PlayStation release on the docket? That's the disappointing thing.
Absolutely.
Mm.
I think they intentionally misled us because the way they announced it made it seem like it was a PS5 exclusive game. That's where the disappointing part lies. I always kind of had in the back of my mind, this could be a PS4 game, but the way they told us and announced this game, there was no indication of that. And with Horizon, they did do that. They did say it was cross-gen. So there was no disappointing aspect to it. With this, there was more disappointment because they kind of misled us. I think you're asking the real question, Ben. What is this exclusive lineup of PlayStation 5 games? Because
when are we going to see? Yeah, when are we going to see a God of War level? So Ratchet and Clank is going to be great, and it's going to be awesome. It's not going to be God of War 2018. It's not going to be The Last of Us. It's not going to be Horizon Zero Dawn. So when are we getting something on that level that's PS5 exclusive?
Mm-hmm.
But let's kind of keep things in perspective though. Like PS4 didn't have that
until
Uncharted.
Second Son was nice looking, but gameplay wise, that could be on PS3. Like there's nothing that game was doing that couldn't be on PS3. Turn down the neon effects, turn on the graphics. You can make that PS3 game. I feel like the first PS4 game that I saw was like, oh, this is a PS4 game, was The Order. That was the first one that this looked like nothing I'd ever seen before. That was a shitty game, but it looked amazing.
Yeah, it was.
It was.
And that's my point. It's like you need time to make these games. You can't. And
of course.
Right. I know we want them to have them there, but they just don't. And they have a track record of not having them.
This, as long as we are into the PS5's life cycle, try to remember back to that long into the PS4's life cycle, about half a year. Mm-hmm. Did we not have any announcement of exclusive?
We had announcements, yes, absolutely. Uncharted 4 was announced. Uncharted 4 was announced.
Right. So those games weren't out yet. They weren't ready to go, but we knew they were on the docket. And that's the difference, is that there's no announced exclusive PS5.
We have some. We know
Bloodborne.
Forsaken is coming PS5. We know that possibly Final Fantasy 16.
I'm talking about Sony's first party heavy hitters. I'm talking about Insomniac. Ratchet and Clank is a given. Okay, so I will give you that one. That's the Bloodborne in the comparison here.
Which ones for PS4 were announced? I can't remember many that were announced besides Uncharted 4.
That may be the case. It may be the case that this is exactly,
I remember that time that the PS4 was carried for its first, I'd argue, 3 years by the third party studios.
Yeah, I agree. I remember I didn't even get a PS4 until 2 years into it, and I didn't have that many games to choose from, honestly.
And it was
like I got The Force Awakens
because you didn't have PS3 games to play on it.
Yeah. I got there
really,
weren't
they
many choices.
That second half of that generation, they started demolishing. I mean, it was incredible.
The second half of it makes it seem like the whole thing was amazing, but really, it wasn't until Uncharted 4 where we got. I know we say Bloodborne, but Bloodborne, like you said, that could be a PS3 game.
I wouldn't discount Second Son either, even though it wasn't like an amazing game. It was what I'm talking about. One of PlayStation's blockbuster first party releases. So even though it was disappointing, it was from one of those studios in like the small stable that creates these amazing games.
And
it was like a once a year. It was like a once a year. They had a big exclusive. They had Second Son the first year. The next year they had The Order, and then the next year they had Uncharted
and Bloodborne.
Bloodborne was in between. Bloodborne is 2015. So PS4 came out. What was that? 2014 or 2013?
2013. November 2013.
2013
Uncharted
was Infamous, right?
Infamous came out. Actually, they delayed it. It was a launch game. They delayed it until like February.
Killzone was the first one. Killzone was the first one that came out. That was launch. That's like the Demon Souls in this equation.
So there you go. They already had. They had two then within the first 6 months.
I mean, we have two now.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know. Maybe
what two do we have now?
Comparison is pretty
Returnal
direct,
and Demon Souls.
Yeah,
I think the important thing is that
Demon Souls is not technically, they don't own Bloodborne.
That's true. It looks amazing, but okay, I can agree with that.
And Returnal is Housemarque. That's an indie studio. I mean, that's a
definitely
little
hair splitting.
They own it.
Definitely hair splitting. I think the really important thing to just remember is that this whole thing was kicked off with the statement, "We believe in generations." We're not doing what Xbox is doing.
That was a lot.
We're not putting our things on, the old machine just because there's an install base there already. That was what's implicit in that statement. Mm-hmm. So we have these new games announced and they're all on PS4. So now we're thinking, okay, why do I even own a PS5? It's for the foreseeable future. It's still going to be a PS4 PS4 Pro.
Yep. Yeah. And I think what they're going to have to do is, get those third-party exclusive contracts to make games specifically for PS5, like we saw with Returnal. That's PS5 exclusive. There's rumors about a new Souls-like Final Fantasy game being for the PS5 that hopefully we'll see. Right. But I'm thinking probably later this month or next month, sometime in July, we'll get that state of play to get PS5 owners excited for the exclusive that were promised and were kind of robbed from us, and maybe even something from a first party. We don't know what Ben Studio is doing, so maybe they'll put out something on the PS5 exclusively. Who knows?
There's also that Ghost game, Tokyo something.
Ghostwire Tokyo.
Ghostwire.
Yeah, Ghostwire Tokyo. That comes out this year. I think we have announcements. I just don't think they're like the level of, let's say, a Naughty Dog announcing their game. Or a Sucker Punch, but at the same time, like those studios just released games too. Like a lot of their studios, they were in the back half of the PS4, so we kind of got to give them time. In my opinion, we got to give them time to develop these games because I wouldn't want Naughty Dog to have a game come out next year because it's been so close from The Last of Us Part 2, and we know how long it takes for them to make games. That's a lot of their studios, so I think
But I want factions.
Hey, I will say this. I'm looking to see the date. The Last of Us, the Part 1 came out in June 2013, and Uncharted 4 came out 2016. So 3 years. That's pretty quick.
I think there's two studios though. I think there's. I think there are two different. I think they separated their studios out for that. If I remember, because Uncharted 3 and Last of Us 1 were developed by two different factions of Naughty Dog. I know that for sure. Okay. And I think they all came together for Uncharted 4.
That's right.
That sounds about right.
Who wins?
It's not really fair. And they don't do that anymore. They just develop under one team now, if I remember correctly.
Who won this? Is this do we the consumer lose or did everyone win?
We won. No, we lose.
Sony wins for sure.
Sony wins. And I agree with y'all. It is disappointing. It is disappointing, but I can't say I'm not surprised.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
Let's all smoke the peace pipe and move on.
Hopefully we get some announcements this coming E3. That's what I'm hoping for. I hope we get some updates on some things, get some announcements. That will make me happy again. But yeah, no, it is disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
Who wants to reminisce?
I want to reminisce. So
take it away.
So there is this game that was on the GBA that was one of the games that kind of got me to know, oh, I'm a gamer. Like, I love video games. And it is a Legend of Zelda clone of one of my favorite franchises of all time. The game I'm talking about is Dragon Ball Z, The Legacy of Goku. 2. Because 1 is horrible. 1 is horrible. 1's one of the worst games I've ever played. So hard. Such a hard game. But The Legacy of Goku 2, to me, if you're going to rip off Zelda, you have to have something that differentiates you. And I think being able to go Super Saiyan is the perfect thing to be able to differentiate you. This game it retells one of my favorite parts of the Dragon Ball Z story, the Cell Saga. And it does it in such a perfect way. It takes some detours away from the anime, but it tells the story pretty faithfully besides that. I love this game. You get to play as all the different characters of Dragon Ball Z lore. In that time frame, of course, Goku, of course, the title character. You play as his son Gohan. I don't know how familiar y'all are with Dragon Ball Z, but that's my favorite entertainment anything. So when I found out there was a Game Boy game for it, I didn't know what to say. And I think that this was a weird point in time for licensed games. Because licensed games back then were very hit or miss. You know, just because it's your favorite franchise, like you might like, Avatar the movie, but Avatar the game might not be the best thing in the world. And so when I got Legacy of Goku 1, that was a case of, oh, this is some shit. I don't know if I'll ever play a Dragon Ball Z game again. Mom gets me Legacy of Goku 2. I replayed it this week. And I don't think it was illegally, because I did, get it on my Mac, but I owned it at one point. So I give it, they've gotten my parents' money.
Technically, yeah.
So I own the game. It's just somewhere I don't know. It's lost to the ether. It's in some. I hope it's in some little kid's hands. Like,
you had the GB operator.
Mm-hmm.
I have an iMac, so it's but yeah, I love this game. I don't know if anybody has any memories about it, but I love Legacy of Goku 2. I'm playing it right now.
Yeah, I played this game too, and I honestly, for the life of me, don't know how this game got into my hands, because I was never a Dragon Ball Z fan at all. Like, a bunch of kids at my school used to love Dragon Ball Z, but it never resonated with me. I just watched Yu-Gi-Oh! That was about it. But somehow I got my hands on this game, and it was so much fun. I probably replayed and finished that game like 10, 20 times. And I can't remember I think I did play the second one, but I wasn't able to get the first one, and I don't know. I kept coming back to it, and it was always fun. Like, year after year, it would be like one of those games I would play every single year. But yeah, I definitely, you saying this and bringing this back, this memory that this game actually exists, makes me want to find a legal way to play this game again.
It's worth it. It's worth it. And there's a third one that I didn't know came out, so I plan on playing that too.
Nice.
So hopefully, I hope I find some time this year to play it, because Dragon Ball Z is my favorite franchise of all time. I'm a shill for any Dragon Ball Z game, good or bad, and love this game.
Nice.
Buy your games legally. This is a good Christian podcast. Mm-hmm. Or don't. I don't care. Who cares? I don't give a shit.
Whatever makes you happy. Games are supposed to make you happy. So however you obtain them, no judgment.
I can't support this.
I won't pay your court case.
Buy games unless you're evil. Buy games unless you're an evil demon child.
Support your creators.
Or unless on eBay they're like $600.
No, buy that too. Spend your entire life savings.
Grab that Dragon Ball Z game for $600. Go ahead.
That's our endorsement.
That's our endorsement. Absolutely. I want to thank everybody for watching or listening to the Dukes of Gaming podcast. Again, you can listen to us on your favorite podcast service and watch us on our YouTube channel. Leave a like, a review, a comment, anything to support or help our show. You can even email us at therealdukesofgaming@gmail.com to have it be read on the air. All of our socials are in the description as well. We're coming at you next week with some more hot takes. Hit the bell as well and get notifications when we release our latest videos on YouTube. We post everywhere, every Monday, every week. So make sure you start your week right with the fellow Dukes, and we'll see you next week. I bid thee farewell.